Today we're going to have a quick talk about outboard engines. As the season approaches, people will be thinking about getting out on the water, and as Honda Marine and Suzuki Marine dealers, we thought we'd look at a couple of options that both manufacturers have. We're going to look at the lowest horsepower engines, and that is the DF 2.5 from Suzuki and the BF 2.3 from Honda. Now, as the numbers denote that horsepower, you can see that the Suzuki is slightly more powerful than the Honda, but I think it's fair to say that you won't notice the difference. So these are pretty much a like-for-like comparison when it comes to usage. Both engines have internal fuel tanks, which are filled from the top. Both engines use straightforward unleaded fuel, same as you put in your car. There's no oil mixed with it, the oil sits in the engine itself. Both engines come in both long and short shaft, depending upon the type of boat that they're going onto, and both are twist grip throttles. That means both of the engines can have their throttles locked into position. They've got friction levers on the throttle. So you turn the throttle to the desired position, tighten the friction lever, and that holds the throttle where you've left it. It's not so tight that you can't turn it the other way and reduce the throttle, but it will hold it in place. When you don't want that there anymore, you loosen it off, and then if you let go of the throttle, it just spins back. They are both able to tilt. It's a manual tilt with these engines, as it is with all engines of this size. And the engine comes up, and there's a little locking lever on the Suzuki. It's on this side, and that's locked in the upright position. In order to disengage it, there's a little lever here. You just flick it up, and the engine drops back down again. On the Honda, it's exactly the same. You pull it up, there's a lever here that will engage, and that's the engine in the upright position. In order to disengage it, you lift the engine a fraction, disengage the lever, and down it goes. There are some differences to the engines. The Honda, most notably, has an air-cooled engine, and that means that no water is pulled up through the gear leg into the engine. In fact, the BF 2.3 is the only air-cooled engine out there. Suzuki, as an alternative, is a water-cooled unit, and that pulls up water and that circulates through the engine and cools the engine. One other difference between these two engines that's really quite important to point out is that the Suzuki has neutral and forward gears, no reverse, and the Honda has no gears at all. The Honda operates by the use of the throttle. So as you engage the throttle, it engages a centrifugal clutch in the gearbox, and the engine will turn the prop and you'll move away. The starting procedure for both of these engines is very similar. First of all, you need to make sure that you've got good clean fuel in the engine. You need to open the vent cap at the top, and this prevents a vacuum being formed when fuel is pulled through into the engine. On the side here, you'll see that you've got fuel off and fuel on. You need to turn it to fuel on. On the Honda, you've got something very similar. It's just at the back of the engine. Then it's the same procedure for both of them. The first thing you do is make sure you've got the kill cord around your wrist. This is crucial. This could save your life. And what this does is, if you come out of the boat or you're thrown away from the engine, it pulls off and it triggers the stop switch here, and the engine will stop. That means that you won't be in the water with a boat that's got a propeller spinning, or the other alternative is the boat won't be traveling away from you and you won't be left in the water. And if you need to stop the engine at any time and it's not an emergency, you simply press the stop switch. So we've got our kill cord attached, we've got fuel in the engine, we've got fuel to the engine because we've turned the fuel on, we've got the vent cap open. We're going to pull the choke out to make the mixture more rich. We now need to turn the twist grip throttle to the start position and you can lock it in position with the friction lever for the throttle. Both engines have it. With the Suzuki, you need to make sure that the engine's in neutral, and then pull and go back in and wait until it engages again, and then give it one long pull. What you want to avoid is pulling it from this position here, because what will happen is you will accelerate and you will catch the engine and it will put undue force on the recoil starter mechanism. So pull it out, go back in, and when it catches, give it a pull. Steering for these engines is really straightforward. The DF 2.5 moves around 360 degrees. If you want to go into reverse, it's only got a forward gear. So you turn the engine 180 degrees, flip the tiller over, and that's reverse. Similarly, with the BF 2.3, 180 degrees, flip the tiller over, and that's reverse. Sometimes you might find that the steering's a little bit light, and if there are short periods of time when you let go of the tiller but still have the kill cord around your wrist, you might want the engine not to move about. In such an instance, there are friction levers for both of these engines just at the side, and you can tighten them up, and what that does is it just makes it a little bit more difficult for the engine to turn left and right. And in normal operation, you can just ease that off and it moves much more easily. It's exactly the same for the Honda. You've got a friction lever down here that you tighten, and it just makes it more stiff. You can keep tightening it and then it will make it incredibly stiff. Normal operation, loosen it off, and it's just very straightforward to steer. When you either come into the shop or buy it online, we'll need your name, your address, email and telephone numbers, and the reasons for this is that we need to register these engines to you. The warranties that apply on these engines are 5 years for leisure use for the Suzuki, 2 years for commercial use. For the Honda 2.3, it's 6 years for leisure use and 2 years for commercial. Now, those warranties cover manufacturer defects. They don't cover wear and tear or any damage that you might cause to the engine, so it's very similar to the warranty of a car. It does require regular servicing to maintain that warranty. Both engines require to have their engine oil removed and changed after 20 hours or 1 month. That's quite important to get that service done. That will actually help to keep your engine in really good condition. Subsequent to that, it's every 100 or 200 hours. Usually for an engine of this size, 100 hours use or 1 year is going to be all that's required. So most of the time, drop the engine into us once a year or to your local dealer, and they'll service the engine and what's called winterize it. And that just means they'll make sure that the internal parts of the engine are protected by spraying something called a fogging oil in. And that means that when you pull the engine cord at the start of the next season, it should start without any problem at all. So you come in. Most of the time our customers, if they're collecting the engines in person, don't want the box. The reason for this is the boxes are fairly enormous and it's far easier for them to take the engine away without the box. However, if you do want it left in the box, just let us know and we'll just drop it in for you. With these engines, you get a small toolkit, an instruction manual and a recoil starter. Although I can honestly say, in the 10 years that I've been doing this, I've never known a time when that spare has been needed. It is worth sitting down in the evening and just spending a bit of time going through the manual just so that you're familiar with the features, how to start it, the maintenance schedule, and things like that, just to make sure that you are aware of what the manufacturer wants you to be aware of. So, if you decide that one of these engines is right for you and you buy one from us, some of these engines will be on display in our shop premises, and if they're on display in our shop premises, they've been PDI'd. Now, PDI stands for pre-delivery inspection, and it's something that we have to carry out before we can sell the engine. We drop the engine into our test tank, we fill it with oil, and we run it to make sure that everything's working as it should be. When the PDI is completed, we take it out of the tank, let it drain. We take the oil back out of the engine, and that's a crucial point because you will get the engine without any oil in it. The reason for this is that's the safest way to transport them. We can recommend the right grade of oil when you purchase them, and that will be available on our website as well. Now, transporting these engines when you buy them or subsequent to that, when you filled them with oil, it's really important to remember that they need to be transported in a certain way, which is tiller side down for the Suzuki and tiller side up for the Honda. That will ensure the oil stays where it should. In addition, if you can raise the head a little bit, that helps ensure that the oil stays in the oil sump and doesn't move out. Another crucial thing to remember is that you ensure that the filler cap for the fuel tank and the air vent are closed on both. And that, crucially as well, the fuel is in the off position. The reason we transport them like that is that because they're 4-stroke engines, if you lie them the wrong way round, you run the risk of oil leaking out, and it usually finds its way into the carb, and at that point it's a trip back to your dealer to get them to clean the carb out for you. So far simpler just to remember which side the engine goes down and to avoid that problem altogether. So when you do get these engines home, before you use them, you're going to need to make sure that they're filled with oil. Now the process is similar for both of them. You remove the hoods. Underneath you'll see a little oil filler cap, and you need to add the correct grade, which is different for the Honda and the Suzuki. Details are available on our website. And you need to fill the oil until you can see the top of the oil in both of these indicator windows here. You need to fill it just a small amount at a time and give the oil time to get into the engine, much like you would with your own car. Now it's crucial that you don't put too much oil in the engine. If you do, you can damage the engine, so it's important that you get any excess removed if you have overfilled it. We can do that for you, your local dealer can do that for you, but it is crucial that you do not use it for any period of time with too much oil in the tank. My advice is put the engine upright and do it a bit at a time and don't rush it. And if you get it wrong, too much oil in there, the oil's got to come out.